Hi, I'm Mickey B, and I'm alcoholic.
Hi, Mickey.
Yeah, I just learned something. I didn't know I was a suspect. Anyway, so I'll start with my sobriety date. It's March 27th, 2022. But I do know Dan from way back because I'm not new to AA. I had a really, really long drinking career and planned on drinking probably my whole life. I did not want to stop drinking. And I had doctors telling me for about 10 years that I needed to quit drinking because it was ruining my liver, but for some reason I didn't listen for another 10 years. And it got to the point that I had recently turned 50 years old in 2014, and I was told I better quit drinking soon because it's going to screw up my liver beyond repair. Yet I let another 6 months go by, and I still didn't quit drinking until I actually had an annual DOT physical. And I had a doctor who was about 70 years old and asked how much I drank and how many times a week I drank. And I put down 3 beers 3 times a week, which was an absolute lie. I drank as much as I could every day. Uh, I drove for a living, had CDL, so I had to limit what I drank on weekdays. They have triple zeros in the morning, and I drank as much as I could the whole weekend uh, until I had to cut myself off to have triple zeros for Monday morning. Um, so the doctor goes, she basically called BS on me. In a professional way, she went around and called BS. She saw how jittery my handwriting was because I was completely sober for the physical, but I I needed the alcohol to get rid of the shakes. And she made me do an exercise that I had to take off my shoes and stand on one foot, and I couldn't do it. I was completely sober. I I couldn't do it. I I'd fall over. If I had a few drinks in me, I could do it all day long. But anyway, it really hit home. So this was in February of 2015, and I decided to get some treatment. I ended up calling up Lakeside Milam, and I got in there March 26th, 20 no 25th, excuse me, 25th, March 25th of 2015. Um, well, I got to go back to when they called me. I had to wait 3 weeks to show up. They were booked solid. So for me, it was party on for those 3 weeks. I was drinking as much as I could every day. I took a personal leave of absence from my job, and it was party time. And I checked my phone every morning to see if they called. And so, and I drank early. So at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday, the 25th, no phone call. So I started drinking. And then I got a phone call at 10 o'clock. It was Lakeside Milam. We got a place for you. Can you come down? So I had researched it. I had relative willing to drive me down there and ready to go. And I said, well, I've already started drinking. I'll come tomorrow. And they go, no, no, we're ready for you now. And I go, no, you don't understand. When I start drinking, I need to finish drinking. I'll be in tomorrow. And then I hung up on her and started drinking some more. And then for some reason, I got up to use the bathroom and I looked myself in the mirror and it was like, it's time. I got to do this. So I called him back and I told him I was coming in. And anyway, I had a few more drinks, and then I had my mom drive me down to Lakeside Milam. I got dropped off in the morning about 11 o'clock. Uh, at that time, those were the last drinks that I had. Um, I got introduced to the little fishbowl room where they take your cell phone, your wallet, and all your identification that says you're going to be here for 28 days. You don't need any distractions. And they handed me a big book. That was my first introduction to AA. So I felt relieved because I was someplace I was going to get some help. I needed help. I knew I did, but I couldn't do it on my own. And I thought Lakeside Milam was going to fix me. So that was one of my first mistakes. I thought, hey, I'm going to get cured and I'll be fine. But So anyway, I did their exercises that they taught us, but when I'd have the meeting in the fireside room and look at the 12 traditions and the steps on the wall, I would read those, and they encouraged us to read the big book. And I attended my first AA meeting that night, and and then on Thursday, Fourth Dimension would come in and they would chair the meeting there. People from outside would come in. That's where I first met Dan. I didn't know him the first week because I just got there. But as the weeks went on, I got to know the people at Fourth Dimension. And after I had a few weeks of time there, and the counselors was encouraging me to get a temporary sponsor and get in contact, try to get something going in AA. They also tried some other stuff, like talked about Oxford houses and stuff like that. But it seemed like the main focus was on AA, and I didn't know it at the time, but that's basically was the key, was the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So it was, I think, second or third. No, it was 19 days sober. I remember now. It was 19 days sober, and I saw the only other bald guy that was from Fourth Dimension, and I asked him to be my temporary sponsor. So he said, "Yeah, sure." So I had to start calling him every day uh, from Lakeside Milam. That was part of the requirement, and that's what I did. And I got out on a Wednesday, which happened to be Fourth Dimension's first or their meeting. My first meeting outside of Lakeside Milam was with Fourth Dimension, and I started working with Dan, and I kept referring him to as my temporary sponsor. And he goes, "Are you looking for temporary relief?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, you ought to consider having a permanent sponsor." So, and then I asked him if he'd be my permanent sponsor to take me through the steps. And I got started in a program of AA that right there. Dan became my sponsor, and Fourth Dimension right off the bat was encouraging, not only with the meetings, but I mean encouraging being of service and helping others and getting outside of myself. So I got, because I had an old school sponsor and I had a group that had kind of the old school, get yourself, immersed in the program, being of service, and I had a chance to come here and answer phones when I had 59 days of sobriety back in 2015. And I eventually joined other groups where I had a chance to be of service too. I eventually worked through the steps with Dan. I had a couple of hiccups. I didn't want to do the fourth step, and I quit on them a couple of times. But I never drank, and then I finally got through it, but it took about a year and a half. And anyway, I did go through the steps, and then other meetings that I was at, I was had service positions. I was with Pass It On, and I was their phone person here for 2 years. I believe it was last Saturday of the month, and that was a good position to have. And it was real fulfilling to come down here and answer phones. It's real easy, 6 to 8 calls in a 4-hour shift, and got a chance to help a lot of people, which in turn helped myself. Um, and then I also drove for Lakeside Milam for about 4 years, and I actually got my first sponsee through Lakeside Milam, and I got lucky. He went through all the steps and everything, and he now sponsors people himself. His name is Kurt, and he's also a friend of mine. Anyway, so life was good for me for the 5 years that I practiced the program. I attended regularly at 4D and had a few other meetings, and I was active, and I was working on praying to God more, my higher power, and life got better. And I did a few other fun things in sobriety. I got back into some of the outdoor activities I like. I joined OSAT and started hiking and climbing again. And one of the high points of sobriety literally was 2000, 2017. I was able to summit Mount Rainier again, and it was a chance to do it in being sober and not drinking. Anyway, so so life rolled good, but I think I started regressing a bit probably back in around 2018 and 19. I mean, I was still doing the meetings and everything, but I was starting to like give God less control and take more control of my life, and I was letting outside issues bother me more, and I was working more than I probably should have. But I was still coming to meetings and being of service. Anyway, so 2020 rolls around, and this perfect storm of COVID hitting at the right time. I had incident at my job that gave me I had an option to where I could uh, basically lose my job for 2 months or resign. So I decided to resign, and I did a relocation to Centralia, Washington. I just cashed in all my chips and moved down there. And during this COVID time, there was no live meetings down in Centralia, and I wasn't a big school of the Zoom meetings, so I didn't really do much of the Zoom meetings. So basically, I kind of just when I left Seattle, I kind of just abandoned my program. I wasn't calling my sponsor. Um, I wasn't. I was doing very few Zoom meetings, and then wasn't doing any at all. And then I moved down there, and I just got into a bad place where I wasn't praying enough to God. I wasn't reaching out to the people in AA. I wasn't trying to be part of AA, and I slowly deconstructed my AA program. Where in September 2020, I picked up. I knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. I drank for a couple months. Basically, my body did not like it. My mind said I needed it. The body says no, didn't need it. And I struggled with that for a couple months. And then I tried a half-hearted attempt to come back to AA, working with Dan again, but I wasn't doing Zoom meetings. I was still calling them, and I only hung in there a month. So I don't even really consider that trying to come back. So I basically was out another whole year till January came around, and then I was trying to quit drinking again. January of this year, I was trying to quit drinking again, and I couldn't. I couldn't stop. 2 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, 3 days off. Body was sick, mind needed it. And finally, I just started praying. Just give me some strength. And I actually tried quitting on my old sobriety date, but I didn't make it. Missed by one day. March 27th was my last drink, but I wasn't back in the program. I was just dry drunk then. Then I got a text from my sponsee, former sponsee who I resigned from, and he congratulated me for helping him get 5 years, and that lit a fire under my behind. I was like, I need to go back to what works. So I met up with him in April, drove from Centralia to Federal Way every Thursday for the whole month of May to meet with Kurt and do his meeting. And then I got in contact back again with Dan, and I met up with him in June and started driving to Bellevue every Wednesday, asked him to be my sponsor again. And I've been coming down here to Bellevue every Wednesday ever since then. Got a chance to answer phones here in June and July of this year. So I dived back into a program that worked. I was reluctant to get restarted in my program, but I knew the only thing that worked was a program that I had to be fully immersed in, because the half measures would avail me nothing. So he asked me to speak here today. Here I am. I got 4 months, and I'm happy that I got 4 months, because where I was a bad place. So, I'm back on the road to AA, and I appreciate y'all listening. Thanks for letting me share.